How we doing, folks? It's First Take on a Friday. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Remember, catch us weekdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN. Right now, a lot to get into. Will Draymond Green's antics on the court keep the Warriors from winning a championship? Plus, the Celtics don't make a move at the trade deadline. So does this make them winners or losers? And where should Tony Romo and Adrian Peterson play next season? Let's get it started. If you're working for the weekend, you're almost there, folks. Good day. It's First Take. Thank you so much for being with us on a Friday. Max Kellerman is in NYC. Stephen A. is off for good reason. He is getting an award. Congratulations to him. But you know this man. We're in good hands. Will Kane in the house for a full 2 hours. Looking forward to this.
Glad to be here.
It's going to be fireworks. Yeah. Good to have you. You ready to work,
Molly,
Max?
hey, Will.
How we doing?
Molly, I can just say now, I mean, it's 2 hours from now. I cannot wait to hear your final take on Jameis Winston. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, I might have went in. So people, please stay tuned for that towards the end of the show. But you know who else went in? Draymond Green. Thanks for queuing me up, Max. He never shies away from a microphone or a technical, racking up his 11th of the season last night in the Warriors' 10th straight regular season win over the Clippers. Green was talking trash all night, even telling Paul Pierce he won't get the farewell tour Kobe got as his coach prompted them to play with more emotion, and his fire lit up the rest of his squad, who put up 50 in the third quarter alone. But when you're living on the edge, or in Draymond's case, playing on the edge, sometimes it's fireworks and sometimes you get burned.
I wasn't arguing, though. I said how.
Oh, whatever happened.
How many arguments you got into your life and you said how? Answer the question.
A couple, maybe.
A couple. And all your response was how, and there was an argument.
You never know with girls sometimes. You know?
All right, I agree with you. But if you just say how, that means you're getting argued at. You're not arguing if you say how.
I told him, I said, let's see if we can take a different tack, and myself included. Let's lay off these guys. I want Draymond to go right up to the edge and not cross it. And that's asking a lot because it's he plays right on that edge all the time. That's why he's so great. It's why he is who he is. We need that from him.
As we all remember, in last year's finals, Draymond's suspension clearly held them back from winning another title. Max, will his dramatics hold them back again?
Well, I don't know if you can even say that it held them back last year because you're comparing him to himself. Look, the answer is no. He's not going to hold them back from winning a title because that assumes that you can find someone else who can do all the things he can do and have the emotional temperament to taper it back a little bit so nothing bad ever happens. That's assuming a lot. Who's like Draymond Green? He's an elite defender at 5 positions, which means he can switch and everything, pick and roll, doesn't matter the combination. He can play in any lineup and against any lineup. And that alone would make him a very, very valuable NBA player. But that's not all he does. He also shoots the 3 well, which means that defenses are sucked out and it allows everyone else space to operate. They can play 5 out. He also runs the floor very well at exhausting the other bigs. He also is an unselfish player, and he's high energy and leads them emotionally at times. So when you look at that entire package, you can say, if only he was on the other side of the emotional line sometimes, he wouldn't have been suspended in Game 5 and they would have gone on to win the title. But without Draymond Green there, who says they're anywhere near a championship? I will remind you that in Game 7, down the stretch, if Steph hits one shot, Draymond Green is the MVP of the finals. That's a finals that included LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kyrie Irving. One shot, 1 3 that Steph would have hit, and Draymond, in the last 4 minutes of the game, Draymond's the finals MVP. I don't see how you can say that guy holds you back from winning a championship.
Because his question isn't theoretical, Max. He already has. If we're lining up the ifs, ands, or buts, if we're playing the games of abstractions and what could have been, trust me, I'm making fewer leaps than you are. Draymond getting himself suspended in the finals last year most certainly cost the Warriors their championship. 3-1 lead, Game 5 suspension. You think if Draymond plays in that game, the dominoes don't fall in a different way? Maybe they don't win that particular game, Max, but momentum shift swings are huge in a series like that. Draymond getting suspended and costing his team a title isn't theoretical, it's been done. And what I would offer you this is he might be the only thing that can cost the Warriors a title this year. I mean, if I were making a list of things that could deny the Warriors a championship this year, he's definitely top three. LeBron, Magic, again, greatest player in the world, rises to the occasion once again. Maybe Greg Popovich runs some Greg Popovich magic in the Western Conference Finals. But three, right there in the top three, is Draymond Green implosion again. Molly alluded to it. No. You said this. Live on the edge. If Genius lives on the edge constantly. But Draymond's problem is he crosses over the edge. You heard it from his coach. We can all see it. It's not talking trash to Paul Pierce, by the way. It's this nonsense kick to Blake Griffin. I don't know if we've been playing that video or not, but this crazy, flailing, childish kicks that he throws out. It's blowing up on Kerr on the sidelines. These are the kind of things that can derail what is a historically great team.
If something derails the team, it's going to be the interior defense against a team that can post against them. And I don't know who that team is because they don't have Bogut anymore. That's the kind of thing that'll derail them. Look, teams with players who have the kind of personality that Draymond does, or fiery temperament, key players with a fiery temperament, I think of Dennis Rodman a lot. Of course, the question is always, ultimately, if they succeed, can that player walk on the right side of the line? And LeBron James, to his credit, identified that emotional weakness in Draymond Green, exploited it, got him suspended for that one game. But the fact, talk about theoretical, you don't know that they win that game with Draymond or the series with Draymond. That's theoretical. Nevertheless, all you're saying is Draymond can be an even better player if he checks his emotions at times, at just the right time. That's not saying that he's going to hold them back from winning a championship. I will give you an example. Will Kane. 1926. Babe Ruth
modern era, huh?
is caught. He's tagged out. He's tagged out at second base to end Game 7 of the World Series with a slugger, Bob Musial, at the plate. He's thrown out trying to steal second base. Wasn't a very good base stealer. He's thrown out in Game 7 of the World Series. Babe Ruth cost them the World Series, except that the only reason they're in Game 7 is because Babe Ruth hits them to the World Series and then hits home runs during the World Series to take it to a Game 7. Did Babe Ruth hold them back from winning a World Series? You're comparing him to himself. He could be an even more perfect player. That's all you're saying about Draymond. Wow. He's not going to hold them back because he is one of the key reasons they get as far as they do.
I certainly respect your baseball knowledge. I do. It's impressive. 1929 evidence might be a bit dated.
1926.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me add 3 years to that equation. 1926 evidence might be a bit dated. Let me rely on something a little more recent, if you wouldn't mind me. Just indulge me. I know a guy who argues debates on television often named, Max Kellerman. And Stephen A. Smith, and everyone I've encountered over the past 6 months who have constantly told me that the problem with Tony Romo is this, that the best ability is availability. The problem with Tony Romo isn't his play, it's whether or not he's going to be on the field. How many times have I heard that argument? What did you put the over-under on?
Sure, 1 million.
Okay. It's the same with Draymond. If he's not on the court, he hurts his team. You can, and you're right, all the statistics you rattled off about what Draymond brings to a team. No one's argument is that Draymond isn't a great player. Draymond is a great player. But greatness, and even more than greatness, genius, lies on that line that Steve Kerr mentioned. The line, but the edge between complete and utter success and complete and utter failure. Draymond, too often, crosses over. We can lift him up.
I'm not arguing that. Of course, Will, you're right about that. Of course he would be, but what you're saying is he would be even better if he could walk that fine line more expertly. Yes, we agree with that. He can be a more perfect player, and that would make the Warriors even better. But if there was no replacement for Romo, if you didn't have Dak Prescott, and Romo got hurt, say, in the Super Bowl, and yet you still almost won, you would be on TV arguing with Stephen A. and me, how could you blame this on Tony Romo? Without him, he didn't hold them back. Without him, they wouldn't have gotten as far as they did. And by the way, again, address this point.
All right.
He's one Steph Curry shot away from Finals MVP. How does that guy hold you back? He was going to win the MVP. It's not his fault the team didn't score in the last 4.5 minutes of Game 7. One score, and he's the MVP.
First of all, let's take a moment to just acknowledge the genius that it takes to turn a Draymond Green topic into a Tony Romo topic. Let's just talk about the genius it takes to force the Cowboys
that I'm alive
into
for that
any
reference.
equation.
I will give you that.
But But I don't think I'm
shoehorned them in.
stretching here. The thing is this, Max. I understand. You can find ifs, ands, or buts. You can find missed threes. You can find other players that didn't rise to the occasion on the moment they were needed. But Draymond is a pattern of behavior. It's George W. Bush's famous line, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me. No, I'm going to mess it up just like he did. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It's now on us. It's now on the people that keep making apologies and excuses for Draymond. There are two moments that you need last night. You need to see that kick against Blake Griffin and know that it's a pattern of behavior that goes now, half a dozen deep. If you think it's a good bet to say that won't happen again in the NBA playoffs or in the finals, you're making a bad bet. But more importantly, Max, real quick, more importantly, it's blowing up on Steve Kerr like he did last night because that shows internal team dissension. They keep a cap on it. We've heard the locker room stories. They've kept it wrangled. I question how long you can do that.
There's no question, Draymond, were he to control his temper in those moments more finely, he would be an even better player. That's a long way from there to he's holding them back from a championship when he's one of their most important players on one of the greatest, at least regular season teams ever.
I don't think he's holding them back. I think when you line up the risk factors to a Warriors championship, he's in the top 3. He might be number 1.
Speaking of...
risk factors to winning another one. Go ahead, Molly.
Speaking of blowing things up, the Clippers might have wished they did that on the wrong side of that game. You know what they say, he who hesitates is lost, and the Clippers might be having some regrets after not making any moves yesterday before the trade deadline, then following that up by giving up 50 in one quarter to the Warriors, who they haven't beaten in the regular season since Christmas Day of 2014. As we all know, since CP3 and Blake Griffin teamed up, LA hasn't gotten out of the second round of the playoffs. Max, let's stay with this theme.
Yep.
Is it time to blow it up?
No, it's been time to blow it up. You're a day late and $1 short at this point if you're the Los Angeles Clippers. Look, if you were just to stack the talent over the last several years in the NBA, Clippers are talented as anyone. You know, you look at Chris Paul, a perfect point guard, Blake Griffin, an unbelievable superstar. DeAndre Jordan's come such a long way and turned himself into a frontline center. They've had incredible talent, but it's not formed right. It's not in the right shape. If you look at the modern NBA and how you play 5 out, how the Warriors do at least, and they're the dominant force in the Western Conference, you need to either be able to do that to address, by the way, Will, the strategic difference is you actually have to address Draymond Green. You know, you have other point guards, not as good as Steph Curry, who can shoot from 7 feet out and still hit threes, Damian Lillard and others. But what makes the Warriors different is actually Draymond. So you got to address that. Or if you say, no, we're going to zig while everyone else is zagging, you got to be able to exploit the Warriors in the post, which is not exactly DeAndre Jordan. I mean, if he catches it right around the basket, he can put it in, but that's about it. And Blake Griffin Doc Rivers doesn't seem to use Blake that way against the Warriors. Or Blake doesn't seem to be willing to get down there. So you have the talent, but it's not formed in the proper way if you just stacked it high, but it's not specific enough to address the Warriors. So they needed to move someone like a year ago, but Doc Rivers, the GM, is undermining Doc Rivers, the coach.
Yeah, and that person needs to be Blake Griffin. I agree with you. These three, we all become enthralled with the idea of a big 3. Get 3 stars to superstar range players, and you can compete. But these 3, we have seen their ceiling. They've had multiple years now where we know they can't advance to the Western Conference Finals. They're now, 4th in the Western Conference, and they're in a bunch with they're not with the Rockets and the Spurs. They're down by the 5th, 6th, 7th seeded teams. This is where they are. And the team they have to beat, Max, the team they have to beat in the end is blowing them out by 17 points, by 44 points. Granted, Chris Paul wasn't playing last night when they lost by 10. But it seems like the question is this: where is this going? The upside for this team and these 3, we seem to have found it. We seem to have found the ceiling for Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Jordan. And I agree, what they seem to lack is that A1. That player that the ball is in his hands at crunch time. Chris Paul can be that guy, but it's the wing they need. It's the guy that can take the ball, score from 3, drive to the bucket. Sure. And I think Blake Griffin is the tradable asset that can get you that. I heard you and Stephen A. debating this the other day. Carmelo, if there was a place that Carmelo fit, this was it. It's time for the Clippers to see if there's another mix. It's hard because you say we've got the three guys. If we add a fourth, if we can add just a good wing player, then we're there. But they failed on that quest. They failed to find that fourth guy. Now it's time to find out if they can find a third guy who can be their number one.
Carmelo would have made a lot of sense because he wouldn't have been that difficult to pick up. If you're willing to part with Blake, you could have probably done a 3-team deal, gotten Carmelo and other stuff, and that would have addressed what you're talking about and ultimately acted as a lure potentially for LeBron James as Dan Gilbert really sours that relationship because LeBron's always said he wants to play with Chris Paul and Carmelo Anthony, and there they'd be sitting in Los Angeles waiting for him with DeAndre Jordan. And here's why it was so important that Doc Rivers, the GM, get this all right. And I'm not just talking about him handing his son, who was like a bubble D-League type all-star level player, like he'd like really good for the D-League, maybe okay for a backup almost in the NBA, not quite. And he's made improvements, but not worth the contract that Doc handed him. I'm not even talking about that. I mean the stubbornness. Part of what makes Doc the coach great is his loyalty to players and the way he believes in them and gets them to believe in themselves and rally around each other. But that stubbornness, Doc Rivers, the coach, has affected Doc Rivers, the GM. And why has that been so important? Why is it so important for the Clippers to get this right now? Will, I was just in L.A. doing a radio show with Marcellus Wiley and Sports Nation for almost 6 years, and I can tell you that town loves the Lakers and does not care about the Clippers. And the Lakers are going through the worst period in the history of their franchise in L.A. by far. It's not close. The late, great Dr. Jerry Buss, greatest owner in the history of American team sports by far, passes away. The team's in turmoil. The Chris Paul trade doesn't go through. They've reached a very, very low period in their history. And it's ripe in L.A. right now, particularly with exciting players like Blake Griffin, for the Clippers to win a lot of those young fans in L.A. And instead, what we're seeing is the Lakers now look like they're going to be on the rise. They have cap space. They're under new direction. If Jim Buss was holding them back, that's been addressed now. And how many playoff wins do the Clippers, even wins, do the Clippers have to show for this, by far the greatest era in their history? A handful, more than the Lakers in their worst era? I mean, this was the window for the Clippers to make inroads in L.A. They're failing to do it because Doc Rivers, the Doc Rivers, the coach, is talking Doc Rivers, the GM, into making bad decisions.
Yeah, I don't want to make a habit of agreeing with you too often, but I actually think that window is on the window to closing. As you said, it's overripe. It's past time to have changed the equation. And it's fascinating, Max, that it was just a short 2 years ago that we were talking about the Clippers and everybody flying to Houston to keep DeAndre Jordan. Everything looked so rosy, and this was going to be the three that took them to the future. And the Mavericks got completely derailed in the process. And here we are 2 years later, and did that really work out? Not that DeAndre Jordan's the problem, but these three as the nucleus. Is that really going to work out? I think we already have the answer.
They've never been to a Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, I think we have the answer.
Max, on that note, it's been 46 seasons that the Clippers haven't reached a conference finals. That's the most in NBA history by far. Not to pile on, just did. Let's leave it there, folks. Tonight on ESPN, we got two of the top teams in the Eastern Conference battling at 8 Eastern with the Celtics and Raptors. Then at 10:30, it's the Spurs and Clippers. Our coverage tips with NBA Countdown at 7 Eastern. Michelle Beadle and the boys also streaming live on the ESPN app and watch ESPN. And Saturday night on ESPN, we've got two great college hoops games for you at 6 Eastern. Third-ranked Kansas takes on Texas. Then we'll have our huge Saturday primetime game. It's number 5 UCLA and number 4 Arizona, both games streaming live on the apps. So the NBA trade deadline has come and gone, and Boston stood pat. The Celtics, who are 37-20, second in the East, and own the draft pick that, as of right now, has a 25% chance of ending up being the top overall pick. Here's Danny Ainge on the no-move move.
How close were you guys to potentially making a deal?
It's hard to say. I think that it takes two teams, and so a lot of times we don't know how close. A lot of times it's very easy to tell that the teams are very far apart, but a lot of discussion, good conversation, a lot of rumors that were true, and rumors that weren't true.
Will, Beantown making moves without making moves. Do you agree with the Celtics' strategy here?
No. I think it's time to fire. It's time to fire your ammunition. As probably you come to expect, I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan. Pretty much everything that comes from that region, that's where my affiliations lie. There was a theory for several years in Dallas of keep your powder dry. This would allow the Dallas Mavericks to retain cap space. One day make a run at LeBron, maybe Carmelo, pair somebody with Dirk for all his years. It never happened. The dry powder never turned into a real star, a real asset. And this reminds me, what the Boston Celtics are doing reminds me of that time. There is no doubt that the Celtics have assets, amazing assets, both young players and draft picks, Max, in 2017 and 2018. But at some point, potential is just that, potential. And you have to turn it into a reality. Here's what I think. The question comes down to this, Max. Do you think Jimmy Butler is good enough to lead a team to the NBA Finals? Is Jimmy Butler good enough to take a team past LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers? I think Jimmy Butler is a top 10 player in the NBA. And with the right players around him, Jimmy Butler can take a team to the finals. Now, can he beat the Warriors? That's an entirely different equation. But can he get them there? Yes, I think with Isaiah Thomas and Al Horford, that team is good enough to get there. Now, you have to trade in some assets. Nothing comes for free. And if the reported trade of Jay Crowder and either Avery Bradley or Marcus Smart plus a number one was what's offered, I think Danny Ainge should have done that. He should have done that in a heartbeat. Jimmy Butler becomes your number one. Who's the number one on the Celtics as it exists right now? Who's the guy they put?
Thomas.
It's Isaiah Thomas. How would Isaiah Thomas look as a number two? That's a team that I'm scared of. That's a team.
I don't know that Isaiah Thomas is the number two if Jimmy Butler's on that team. I also don't know if Jimmy Butler's a top 10 player. And you're right, if you added Jimmy Butler to that team, maybe if the Cavs sustained some kind of injury and the Celtics played exceptionally well, maybe the Celtics could even get by the Cavs and lose to the Warriors in the finals, having traded some of the assets that will make them a powerhouse going forward. Remember, Isaiah Thomas is in his mid-late 20s right now, and they still have him for a couple more years.
That's why you do it now, Max.
Horford is not a superstar, but he's not exactly in decline either. He has a couple more years, and he's an excellent kind of modern big, can play the 4 and the 5, face up, post, the whole thing, defend multiple positions, close out on three-point shooters, defend the rim. He's a really useful big, and one of the top handful of bigs when you think of all those things he can do. They are missing another dynamic scorer. But to take Crowder and let's say Avery Bradley away from the team is to actually make the defense worse, even if Butler makes up for some of that. So you're taking a step backward. You're claiming to take 2 steps forward, but those 2 steps still get you a loss in the finals, and now you won't be as good going forward because you gave up what might be the number one overall pick in a really good draft. Now, one of the reasons they couldn't get the deal done may have been because we don't know if that pick is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft or not. And other teams are saying, what if it's not the number 1 pick? What if it's the number 4 pick, the number 3 pick? And we can't get one of the 2 guys we most want, right? Okay, in the offseason, they'll find out what exactly that pick is. Meantime, they ain't winning a championship this year anyway, so why spin your wheels? Danny Ainge made, I think, the best move at the trade deadline, other than Boogie Cousins getting picked up by New Orleans, of any team by standing pat.
The argument against what the Celtics did is the same argument you and I just had 5 minutes ago. It's the Los Angeles Clippers. They're stuck. They're stuck in Clippers land. The NBA is the most predictable league of the top 3. There are 2, maybe 3 teams that can win the NBA championship. Warriors, Cavs, maybe Spurs. They're here. Then this group, where the Celtics lie, with teams like the Clippers. There is nothing right now on that roster that will take the Celtics up into the top group. Your argument that they're going to sacrifice their future to put Jimmy Butler, to put Jimmy Butler on the team to try to get into that group, which I think, by the way, Jimmy Butler pushes them on the edge of that top group, is false. They still have Brooklyn's 2018 first-round pick. They have Jaylen Brown, the number 3 pick last year, on the team. Essentially, what you're doing is upgrading from Crowder to Butler and giving away, yes, Avery Bradley or Marcus Smart, because you got to pay something to get something. By the way, what disrespect you have for Jimmy Butler. Not top 10? What are you going to put Jimmy Butler?
By the way, you could argue top 10. He's certainly top 20. I'm not sure that he's top 10. I could think of a bunch of guys off the top of my head. That's a separate argument. I like Jimmy Butler a lot, Will. I think he would make the Celtics better, but ultimately they would likely be spinning their wheels. Now, Larry Brown to Rick Carlisle, the Pistons once upon a time, and then they brought in Rasheed Wallace. That put them over the top. That was a calculated gamble I could understand in a weaker Eastern Conference because there was no LeBron James on a super team at the time, on a Lakers team that was not nearly as good as people thought. And if you paid close attention, you could see Shaq was not the same player. He had postponed surgery that year. That's the kind of strategic move that can result in a championship, a really good shot to do it. That's when you put your chips in at a low cost. Bring in Rasheed Wallace to put you over the top. At a high cost, when you have a very bright future, considering the draft picks you just mentioned, and the young talent on your team, and the talented young coach, and the smart GM, now's not the time to spin your wheels. If you look at dynasties throughout NBA history, Will, for example, the Lakers, when they went all in on Kobe and Shaq, before that, they had a nice 45-50 win team with some all-star caliber type players, but rather than going after whoever's available at the time, Derek Coleman, I'm just making a name up, and trying to get good enough to compete but ultimately lose to the Bulls in the Jordan era, they were smart. They bided their time. They waited till truly transformative pieces emerged, Kobe, Shaq, and then they made their moves. They remained flexible. The Celtics are in a similar position. They got a good team, a good young coach, a smart GM, lots of assets going forward. The time is not quite right, Max, if it's not a guy who will put you over the top.
My dad was a trial lawyer in Texas, and he once told me this: Will, you do too much ready, aim, fire. Me, I'm fire, 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 aim. Max Kellerman, you do too much ready, aim, fire. It's time to fire.
Like to hit the target.
And you're sitting on your powder. You're sitting on dry powder, aiming away for months and years at a time will spoil your assets. Time is not infinite. Time is a resource that runs out. Let me explain.
Yes, but that doesn't apply here.
Look, it does. It certainly does. Al Horford, 30. You said it. You pointed it out. Isaiah Thomas.
Next year he'll be 31. This is not make or break.
Max,
next year, you will have much more certainty in terms
Isaiah
of your assets
Thomas,
next year.
28. The reason the Celtics are in the position they are today is because of guys who only have a few years left in their prime. You add Jimmy Butler to that to take advantage of the present. And guess what? You don't have to sacrifice your future. You still have Brooklyn's other first-round pick. You still have Jaylen Brown. You can simultaneously bump up your ceiling by adding Jimmy Butler and retain your long-term future. You, Max, want to sit and aim in Clipperland until time runs out.
No, I was for a Clippers trade because they had enough young talent and because it wasn't formed right. The Celtics are building towards something, but listen, I understand the idea, don't aim too long because then the target moves, but don't fire too early either. The idea that there's a tide in the affairs of men is actually usually misunderstood because ultimately didn't Brutus and Cassius do the wrong thing?
What are you talking about? You're talking about Julius Caesar right now?
I certainly am.
In the first 30 minutes, I've got a 1926 New York Yankees reference and Julius Caesar.
Don't show your age, Max.
Damn right you did.
The boys got range. All right, gentlemen, I have breaking news for you. Charles Oakley was at the Knicks game sitting right next to the owner, but not the owner you're thinking of. It wasn't James Dolan, but Cavaliers owner Dane Gilbert. The Knicks were in Cleveland, Oakley's hometown. Charles, why'd you decide to come to this game?
Where does your relationship stand with James Dolan right now?
I'm just taking it easy. I'm not worried about relationship. I'm just taking a day at a time.
Were you surprised to see Carmelo Anthony still in the Knicks uniform today?
I don't know what happened in this league. I don't know what happened with, who make trades, this and that. I mean, things happen. It wasn't maybe, one or two trades? So I'm not surprised.
So you're back at an NBA game involved with the Knicks. When do you think you could be back courtside at a game in Madison Square Garden?
I don't know. I don't know right now.
What are you waiting for to make that happen?
I don't know. I don't know.
I really need to know what everybody's end game is here. But, Max, I'll start with you. What is the message that Charles Oakley is sending?
I'm going to get to that in 1 second. First of all, the big takeaway from me is that it looks like Gilbert is trolling Dolan. Maybe Gilbert doesn't want to be perceived as the worst owner in the league, so it's like, oh, it's that guy. And he's probably right. Dolan is probably the worst. Or Renadive. They're in a death match right now.
Art
to see
of
the
war
worst owner in the league
strategy right there.
I think that Oakley's basic point here is one that Knicks fans will appreciate, but he may be hurting his own cause. What does that mean? Look, what everyone is saying, what I even said the other day is, Charles, take the W. You know how some people can't take the L, they can't take the loss? He can't take the win. He won. Take that W, Oak. You don't need to look bad here because he's starting to look bad. But I think Oakley's bigger point is there's something wrong with the Knicks, and it's Dolan. And I think Knicks fans understand that too. So yes, he's extending an olive branch, Dolan, but I don't want it. I don't want to lend any kind of sense that this franchise is normal, that it's all okay, because it's not, and then I'm part of the problem. The issue with that is Oakley's making himself look bad, and in comparison, starting to make Dolan look better, which is defeating the purpose. So I'm not saying it's a wise strategy of Charles Oakley, but I do think that's the basic idea. No, I'm not going to make up with this guy. I don't want to make up with this guy. I'm not going to lend any credibility I have to the idea that this franchise is normal and good. There's something rotten here. It's the owner, and I don't want to kiss and make up because I think that because Charles Oakley wants to be part of the solution, which is to create more pressure for Dolan. Whether that's right-headed or wrong-headed in terms of the actual effect, ultimately, I think that's what Oakley is getting at here.
I don't think so. I don't think he has any master plan. But if he did, Max, that would be a perfectly legitimate position to hold. The funny thing is, Max, I think the entire sports world was probably in unanimous agreement that James Dolan was a bad owner, that he was actively undercutting any potential success for the Knicks a few weeks ago. Everyone was unanimous in that belief. So even if Charles Oakley had this master plan and this larger point to make that you're pointing out, he's undercut it. And you said that. He has completely undercut it. He has turned critics of James Dolan into supporters, if not supporters, apologists for James Dolan. And logically, I have become that. I think James Dolan is a bad. How do you mess up the New York Knicks? It's the New York Knicks, the place you should be able to attract any free agent to, basketball mecca, Madison Square Garden, and somehow you mess that up? But that's not Oakley's larger point. It's not. And that's why he's failing, by the way. That's why he's failing to communicate to us. Molly, you ask, what is the end game? Here's what I think the end game is for Charles Oakley. Revenge. It's simple and utter emotional revenge. Max, I think his pride is wounded. This is a man who was universally loved, probably still is, by Knicks fans, who had a reputation as a fighter on the basketball court, a tough guy, someone who wouldn't back down from anyone. And this is what happened to him. He was manhandled, rightly or wrongly, and that's a different debate, out of Madison Square Garden. He was embarrassed. Then he was embarrassed afterwards when Dolan insinuated that he had an alcohol problem or other problems like anger problems. Every step of the way, his pride was dinged. He was embarrassed. That's why when Adam Silver sat down, this is my guess as to the equation, why Adam Silver, when he sat down with James Dolan and Charles Oakley, Oakley wasn't interested in putting this on the right track, in Silver's own words. We didn't get back on the right track. Why? Because Oakley's not looking for a happy ending. He's not looking to hold hands.
Will, do you think
he's not looking to walk down a path together? Molly, he wants revenge.
But do you think he's justified in wanting revenge, or you think it's child's play?
Well, I think it's child's play. I think you can't show up to your former employer's office. I don't know what happened there. It looks like he offered his criticism / berated Dolan, got physical with security. Mm-hmm. No one in any business can do that and then somehow play the victim when you get thrown out. I think Oakley was wrong.
Oakley was a vocal critic of the Knicks, you can say, because he felt snubbed by them. But he's saying a lot of the same things that all Knicks fans are saying. Dolan is a terrible owner. He's held the team back. He only cares about the bottom line. He has a bunch of gullible Knicks fans, maybe including Oakley, who will show up to see a terrible product for decades on end as this incompetent guy ruins the franchise. And so he's angry as a Knicks fan at Jim Dolan, as most Knicks fans are.
But not every Knicks fan showed up and put their finger in security guards' faces, got physical with security guards. The point is this. Somehow, two characters who had reputations for the exact opposite of where we land today. Oakley, loved. Dolan, reviled. Yet when you look at this individual incident, you look at the circumstances of just this situation alone, one is the bad guy and one is not. Oakley, the love figure, got it wrong,
I wouldn't say one is
Max.
not. If you know people who've had dealings with Jim Dolan, almost universally, except for the few people that he's extremely loyal to, you talk to other people, been in meetings, etc., they don't like him. It seems that he's not only incompetent, He's not only incompetent, but it seems like he likes to flex his power just as an exercise in flexing it. He doesn't listen to the basketball people, etc. And by the way, the proof is in the pudding. He's a miserable failure in terms of the win-loss record, as you mentioned, as the Knicks guy, as the Knicks owner at Madison Square Garden in the greatest city in the world. You should be able to attract anyone. He can't attract a single major free agent. So, and that's Dolan's doing. So you say that in this interaction with Oakley, his stock rose. No, his stock fell immediately. It plummeted even lower, and Oakley's rose until Oakley mishandled the aftermath of the Adam Silver meeting. At that point, Oakley's stock started to fall again, and in comparison, Dolan started to look a little more reasonable. But the question as to what's Oakley's end game here, whether or not his pride is stung, is he's refusing to be a part of the Dolan circus, legitimizing or normalizing Dolan
right now,
and his behavior.
He's centering in the circus. Right now, he's centering in the circus. He is not refusing to be a part. You have to be able to accept
Dolan's.
these. Hold on, Max. You have to be able to hold all of these thoughts at the same time. James Dolan is an incompetent owner, and Charles Oakley was wrong in this situation. Until Charles Oakley understands those two things, that he was wrong in this particular situation, he'll keep looking for revenge. He'll never get it. He'll keep looking to get his pride back, but he can't do that until he understands the role he played in this circus.
Would you agree that Oakley was not perceived as wrong by the vast majority of the public until he didn't accept the olive branch extended in the meeting by Dolan with Adam Silver, right? Oakley was the hero, Dolan was the villain. It was the aftermath of the meeting that Oakley seemed to mishandle, not the original situation.
Revenge is a dish best served cold. That's what they tell me. Speaking of revenge, Tony Romo might be looking for his own version of that. Cowboys fans, you're being properly represented today. Will Kane is here. The odds for Tony Romo's future team are in. Does he actually have a shot of staying in Dallas, or there is a better home for him? We will tell you that. Plus, last night, Boogie Cousins' debut in the Big Easy. He had a solid first game as a Pelican, but the team lost by 30. Is this a sign of things to come? We get into all of it. First take. Michael Smith and Jamel Hill want you to join them weeknights for the new 6 o'clock Sports Center. They're bringing their own brand of style and personality, sports, music, movies, and more. The 6 is also streaming live on the apps. Grab your wallets. The Tony Romo sweepstakes are underway, and the Vegas odds are out for America's favorite backup quarterback. Bovada says Denver has the best shot to land him at 3-1 odds, followed by Kansas City, Houston, then Dallas with 6-1 odds. Damian Woody in the house, ready to spit flames, as always. Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, same here. Max, now you running too? You like Stephen A. running. Man, we got to stop all this.
Never that.
Okay.
Never that. Never ran, never will.
Okay.
I am going to start with you here, the Cowboy fan,
on
this one. Which team is the best fit for Tony Romo next season?
You should probably just give me the segment, go to break.
Okay.
Because, well, I mean, if you have an answer that is anything but the one I'm about to offer, it just defies the imagination. Tony Romo should be on the Houston Texans yesterday.
Okay.
Yesterday. Let me tell you why. This team, the Houston Texans, is primed to play as a Super Bowl contender next year. Number one defense in the league. Number 2, number 8 rushing attack in the league. Number 3, windows close. This doesn't last forever. All you need as the Texans is 2 or 3 good years of Romo. Damian, and you're looking at a Super Bowl. You're looking at hoisting a Lombardi trophy. Tony Romo's the best bet you could make over the next 2 to 3 years. And the only reason this team went 9-7 with Brock Osweiler and Savage as their quarterbacks. This team went to the playoffs with those two guys. You add Romo, let's just keep this non-controversial for the moment, top 10 quarterback over the last 10 years. I would hold out top 5, but let's not fight. Top 10 over the last 10 years, and you make the Houston Texans a Super Bowl contender. This should have happened yesterday, and shame on the Texans if they don't make it happen tomorrow.
2 to 3 years, Will? How about 2 to 3 games? Every time Romo turns around, a clavicle or a vertebrae is breaking or slipping. He can't stay healthy. Now, If you want to say the best landing spot should he leave Dallas, you're absolutely right. It's Houston. And they would stick it to the Cowboys in the state of Texas. That would be amazing. Houston's only a quarterback away. You identified that. You don't have to give up anything for Romo. Just the cash, and who knows how much. And what's the downside for Houston? Romo gets hurt? All right, they have Savage or Osweiler. They have those guys anyway. So there's very little downside. Hopefully Romo, when he gets hurt, it's in the middle of the season, gets healthy for the playoffs, and they can make a Super Bowl run. That would be amazing. Sure, if he leaves. But who says he has to leave Dallas? Everyone talks about the kind of line item that Tony Romo costs Dallas in terms of the cap. But they don't have to pay Dak yet. So when you think about the overall expenditure on the quarterback position, it would remain the same or maybe go down, right? I mean, they don't need to worry about paying Dak at this moment in time. And Dak plays in the NFL, so there's no guarantee of his health. And who knows the Dallas Cowboys offense better than Tony Romo? In fact, the best place for Tony Romo is on the Dallas Cowboys bench. That is the best fit for him because should anything happen to Dak Prescott, should he regress in any way or get hurt, you can still win a Super Bowl if you got Romo healthy for the playoffs. And at any rate, you have the best backup in the league by far in Romo. If he leaves Houston, yes, but who says he should leave?
Okay, I hear both y'all. I want to preface what I'm about to say by saying this. I think Romo should retire. I really do. I think, when you look at Romo the past couple years, couple back surgeries, couple clavicle injuries, I'm just thinking about long-term Tony Romo, the health of Tony Romo. I think he should retire. Now, for the sake of the segment, Will, I'm going to have to agree with you. I think the Houston Texans make the most sense. Listen, the last time
we still owe Brock Osweiler $16 million in guaranteed money. So is it realistic?
That's not the question. I'm just speaking purely what would be the best fit for Tony Romo. When you look at the Houston Texans, last time we saw the Houston Texans in the playoffs, this was a team, especially on the defensive side, that was giving Tom Brady fits on the defensive side, being able to get after Tom Brady, in the passing game. Team that didn't even have a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, J.J. Watt, the whole year, and arguably had the best defense in the National Football League. Mm-hmm. They have pieces on offense. They have an offensive-minded head coach in Billy O'Brien. You add Tony Romo in the mix. Now, I know the big if is availability. We always talk about the National Football League. The best ability is availability. That's a huge question mark. But if you're able to acquire Tony Romo and restructure a quarterback or get him to a team-friendly deal, plug him in to that offense in Houston, this is a team in a division that I consider weak. It's a weak division. This is a team that could be definitely a contender in the AFC. I'm never going to pick anyone over the Patriots because the Patriots are the gold standard in the AFC. But like I said, we saw what the Houston Texans look like against the Patriots. Obviously, the quarterback position hindered them tremendously in that divisional round against the Patriots.
So, Damian, but if you want him to retire because of his health, which I think there's some wisdom there, why make him the starting quarterback somewhere else where he will certainly be hurt at some point during the year? These are recurring injuries with him, and they're serious. Why not stay right where he is on the Dallas Cowboys bench where his health is protected, and should the need arise, there he is for you. Why should he leave at all?
Here's the reason, Max, is because the Cowboys have cap troubles. Because, yes, you're right, the Cowboys did plan on having Tony Romo on this team beyond this past year. But now that they don't need him, they need that space to make up for other cap problems. 3 of their starting 4 defensive backs are up in free agency. They were, I don't know what they were, but they were the team with the most over the cap in the entire NFL. They're going to be able to get it done. They restructured Travis Frederick. They restructured a couple other guys to get it under, but they need that space to keep guys going. A couple other points of what you guys brought up. First of all, Molly, on Brock Osweiler and the money.
The money, yeah.
The answer is this: shoot or shoot. If you're afraid to win a Super Bowl, if you're afraid to come back to the table.
Today, Will.
Look, if Brock Osweiler scared you off, you weren't meant to win a Super Bowl anyway. If you think I struck out on Brock Osweiler, I better not go back to the table and ante back up for another quarterback. Well, the Houston Texans shouldn't be playing for Super Bowls anyway. They should be honest with their fan base. We're just out here floating up in middle space. That's what we're going to do for the next couple of years.
Will, what was the Cowboys' problem the last couple of years?
Okay,
really?
Listen to me now.
It was a lack of a backup quarterback. They didn't have a backup. You got one now. It's just not not the guy you thought it was. You want to get rid of it?
Now, Max, here's the reason why I don't see Tony Romo being the backup quarterback. Obviously, I think for financial reasons, I don't think that's going to happen. But as a former player, and you can ask any player, any former athlete playing, the worst thing that you could be is injured on a team. You know why? Because you don't feel part of the team. While you're rehabbing, the team is off doing something else. And can you imagine the way Tony Romo felt last year when he's hurt and the Dallas Cowboys are just excelling the whole time? That eats at a competitor. So if you're Tony Romo, do you really want to sit behind Dak Prescott again, knowing that you've been the man in Dallas for years and years? You don't want to ride off into the sunset being a backup quarterback.
All right, Damian,
that's
how
not,
many weeks
the
does Tony
competitor
Romo
in
get?
Tony Romo is not going to lay down and do that.
How many weeks does Tony Romo get into the next season as the Houston starter before he's hurt? Probably out for the year, or at least some significant amount of time.
I can't tell the future, but for the sake of
me neither, but I guess 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, for the sake of this segment right here, we're talking about, okay, if Tony Romo is healthy, what's the best fit? To me, it's the Houston Texans.
It's not just if he's
healthy.
Yes,
if Tony Romo's healthy, sure, yes, go to Houston, win a Super Bowl. They might.
You have defeated yourself in that argument because you pointed out the Houston Texans have Brock Osweiler and Tom Savage behind Romo. They have apparently their plan A right now that they simply move to a plan B if they have Romo. And let me just address Dr. Kellerman and Dr. Woody for a moment on Tony Romo's injury history. Tony Romo doesn't have Yao Ming's feet. He doesn't have Tracy McGrady's ankles. This is not a degenerative, chronic condition. Max, I've had
wait a minute. Hold on.
Hear this out for 1 second.
Will, the last time I checked, anytime you keep opening up somebody's back, it's only going to get worse.
Okay, listen.
Like a back injury is
debilitating.
No,
let Dr. Kane speak.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
Max
Dr.
wants to
Kane.
let me speak because he thinks I'm going to go ahead and end myself on this argument. Here's the thing. I don't think Tony Romo has osteoporosis either, Max. He's had 2 clavicle injuries and a back injury. By the way, none of the back injuries have been related to each other. Do older guys get hurt more often than young guys? Yes, but that doesn't make Tony Romo any different than any other 36, 37-year-old quarterback. I just think this Tony Romo is a fragile piece of paper mache argument that kids keep running out here is a little bit overplayed.
Why? What's overplayed?
Have you ever had slip discs?
If you're not on the field, what's overplayed about it?
Well,
I said the best ability is availability. Has Tony Romo been available? No, he hasn't been available.
Yeah, that's right, and you have told me what happened over the last 2 years, but you just admitted you can't see the future. And what I'm telling you is those injuries don't tell you what's going to happen next year. The way to protect Tony Romo is this. We saw it in 2014 with the Cowboys.
What, to put him in a bubble?
Run the ball over and over and over and play keep away and defense. The Houston Texans.
You don't think the Dallas Cowboys did that?
The Houston Texans can do that. Lamar Miller.
So the Dallas Cowboys can't do that?
Defense.
Lamar Miller's not Ezekiel Elliott. All right, gentlemen. That one's been fun. So no one's feeling Denver. Hey, by the way, a good one for you.
Yeah.
Tony Romo, since 2006, has engineered 29 game-winning drives. Only the MVP, Matt Ryan, and your boy, Max, Eli Manning, have more over that time span. Always looking out for you. Always good to see you.
If you got Carmelo Anthony, how the hell are you going to give him away for a box of cookies? Please explain. I need help, Max. You ain't getting a superstar for him. He's not a superstar. You trying to tell me that? Who's the superstar? Yeah, Blake Griffin is. A superstar? Really?
That never gets old. What's up, everybody? Welcome into another hour of First Take. Thank you so much for being with us on a Friday. Stephen A. is off today. He is being honored at his alma mater, so congratulations to him. Don't worry, Will Kane is here. And, of course, your boy, Max Kellerman. Max, what are you hot on for hour number 2?
I mean, plenty of NBA, of course, Boogie and New Orleans and all that. But NFL 2. Tom Brady, why? Adrian Peterson, no. Colin Kaepernick, yes. We'll explain coming up. Hour number 2, First Take right now.
4 takes, that's you. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, you got me.
About last night, DeMarcus Cousins made his Pelicans debut, and he filled up that stat column with 27 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 steals, and 4 blocks. But it came with an all-too-familiar result, a 30-point loss to the Rockets. Cousins, how you feeling?
Well, it's obvious we're not used to one another. We kind of, catered to one another instead of just playing our own game. I didn't expect to come in win a championship. Houston's a very good team, very seasoned team. They have their identity, and we're trying to find ours right now.
Max, is this 30-point loss a sign of things to come for Fire and Ice?
No more than if you write a paper in school, the first draft is what you're going to hand in. I mean, let's remember when KD went to the Warriors early this season, they got blown out by San Antonio. You want to replay that game? The fact is, when you try to integrate a major, especially offensive piece onto a team, incidentally, it's not like they were clicking on all cylinders before the trade. New Orleans isn't a very good team. But when you take a team that's not very good in the first place, try to integrate a major new piece who basically plays the same or very similar position as your best player already plays, you're expecting it to look like it's a finished product. There's an old expression, never show a fool half a job. This is half a job. A lot of fools are going to think that this means bad news for the Pelicans. They keep Boogie Cousins. I expect good things from him and Anthony Davis.
Let me be that fool. Should I be that fool?
Apparently. It's up to you. Maybe you are.
Well, I think you're looking at the wrong box score. I mean, you want to know the answer to this question, whether or not this is the
sign of things to come.
Omen of things to come, a sign of things to come. I think you should look at this box score. Kings 116, Nuggets 100. I think you got your answer right there. Kings have found addition by subtraction. Pelicans have found subtraction by addition. Now, I'll grant you one game does not tell us where the Pelicans are going to be, at least not in the terms of 30-point blowouts. But there was a guy that used to work here that popularized a theory called the Ewing theory, that you take away a star player and suddenly teams get better. That's Bill Simmons, his theory. I think you're seeing this play out when it comes to the Sacramento Kings. DeMarcus Cousins is undoubtedly a very talented player. Nobody can score and put up box scores like him without being a talented guy. But that's not the end. That's not the end of the story. Theory and box scores are not basketball. You have other elements. And Ryan Russillo, who hosts a show here from 1 to 4 on ESPN Radio, has pointed this out. He's watched Boogie almost all this season, and he's seen play after play after play, from inbound passes to defense, where DeMarcus Cousins just decides he's not going to play. Now, I'm not saying he did that in New Orleans last night, and I'm not saying he does that every game. But that is the kind of player that the Pelicans have added. And while in theory it's nice to zig while others are zagging, while in theory it's nice to add two twin towers with Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins, the problem with the theory is they're actual human beings. They're players. And DeMarcus Cousins' past suggests the future will not be bright for the Pelicans, that it will not work out. It's not just two 7-foot centers. It's DeMarcus Cousins as one of them.
I think that it's a legitimate question as to whether Boogie Cousins is a winning or a losing player. That's a legitimate question, and the jury is out. The Kings are a losing franchise. I mean, the question was the same with Isaiah Will Thomas was there. Are they a winning or losing? Willie Cauley-Stein's not going to go for 30 and 10 or 29 and 10 every night. And if he does, by the way, God bless him. But the point is that the Kings have a losing culture, and it affected Isaiah Thomas when he was playing with Boogie Cousins. How much of that is Boogie? How much of that is the Kings? We're about to find out. I mean, we know they're the losers in every trade, right? If a team wants to unload a player they think hurts them winning, Masai Ujiri gets to Toronto, he gets rid of right away of Rudy Gay. Who does he find to take him? Obviously, the Sacramento Kings. They lose every trade. They don't know what they're doing, and so they don't know what they're looking at. And the owner is, insane about what he thinks is going to make a good team. At any rate, we're going to find out the answer to your question as to whether Boogie Cousins is actually detrimental to a team's success. But I think if you look at Isaiah Thomas, it suggests probably it's more the Kings. At least that's what the early returns say to me. Boogie Cousins' problem is not on the court. Yes, you can track every play and see at times. No, it's not. You can track every play and see at times, he didn't play defense there, et cetera. You can do that for a lot of players. His style of play is not counterproductive to winning. His skill set is not counterproductive to winning. His age, his injury history, none of those things are counterproductive to winning. His attitude in the locker room might be. He may be a coach killer. He may be uncoachable. We shall see. But none of his actual game suggests that. His actual game suggests he is a monster, and you're putting him with another monster in New Orleans. And if Alvin Gentry can't make that work, that's on him as much as it's on Boogie.
I love it in theory. Theory. I really do. I wish nothing but goodwill for Boogie Cousins, but the evidence is overwhelming. Multiple Sacramento Kings coaches have said he's a problem. Multiple GMs in the NBA this trade deadline said they wouldn't take him in any trade. The thing is, locker room antics and locker room attitude aren't limited to the doorway. You don't cross the threshold and change it. When he gets on the floor, Max, you've played sports, I played team sports. You have players sometimes that are very talented, that can score, that can fill up a box score. But somehow, when it's all said and done, they make the team around them, despite what their score line looks like, they make the team around them worse. They make them worse.
The question,
and the Kings were better last night without him.
If it's not just the attitude we're trying to isolate in the locker room or unwillingness to be coached and those types of things, that's what the jury's out on. That we can agree upon. But if what you're saying is his actual play on the court hurts your team because he's filling up his own stat line and his team is less efficient, I completely disagree with that. I believe Boogie Cousins plays a style of basketball that can absolutely succeed in today's NBA.
It's like when Calvin Johnson left the Lions. They had a better year.
Ewing theory.
Yes. Trade deadline came and went yesterday with a lot of big names staying put. So some of the middle of the pack names who moved were Nerlens Noel going to the Mavs, Todd Gibson and Doug McDermott heading to the Thunder, and Lou Williams joined the Rockets earlier this week. Will, who's your biggest winner and biggest loser from the trade deadline yesterday?
Well, my biggest winner, this is going to sound so homer, but I think it is the Dallas Mavericks. I think trading for Nerlens...
It's homer.
You think it is a homer?
No, it's all good. Keep going.
I mean, you take a top young prospect in the NBA and you get him for virtually nothing. I mean, the Mavericks gave up Justin Anderson, who has some promise, Andrew Bogut, who wasn't going to play in Dallas, and 2 second-round picks. But the upside you get with Nerlens Noel, I mean, you need franchise players to win in the NBA. In order to get them, you have to be picking at the very top of the draft or lure one in free agency or simply hit the lotto. What the Mavericks did is buy a lotto ticket with Noel. Will he pan out? Will he be the guy that was so heralded coming out of college? We'll see. There are promising signs right now. But you have to take that kind of gamble if you want to reboot your franchise. And by the way, my biggest loser, Max, and I think you agree with me on this to some extent, is the other side of that trade. It's the Philadelphia 76ers. This is embarrassing. I know that you and I agree on this. I believe in the process. I believed in Sam Hinkie. And I think the worst thing you can do is halfway into a process, blow it up. Halfway in.
Yeah, Hinkie may be an example. I agree with you about the Sixers. Hinkie may be an example of a guy who is aiming too long and not shooting, and maybe some of that is justified.
He was doing it.
He built the resources of the Sixers up to absurd levels.
Yes.
Absurd levels.
And you traded that for Justin Anderson and a couple second-rounders.
It's unreal. Colangelo made such a boneheaded trade last night. So I agree with you. They're the losers because they gave up an asset, got nothing back. It was stupid. It was a stupid trade. However, I don't know that the Mavs are the biggest winners because I don't see Noel, and I think most people don't, as a franchise-altering cornerstone type.
Potentially.
He's a good complementary player. Maybe he's a Tyson Chandler-ish type player who's really good. That could be even an all-star some years, but not like one of the 2 best players in the nucleus of a dynasty or something like that. So while the Mavs did win the trade, I wouldn't say they're the biggest winner. The biggest winners, we just argued about this, New Orleans gave up nothing to get one of the 10 best players in the world, at least in terms of his skills and talent and age and all that and size and injury history in Boogie Cousins. It remains to be seen how effective he is. And then Houston got Lou Williams, made themselves a lot better also without giving up much. They get out of a year of Corey Brewer's contract. They gave up a late first-round pick. They did very well. But the real winner, I agree Sixers are the loser, the Golden State Warriors. Because they are, if the status quo remained, the Golden State Warriors win. Because they're the best team in the NBA by quite a bit at this moment. And if none of your rivals significantly improve, Darren Williams to the Cavs is a great pickup for the Cavs. They give up nothing and they get a little better. That's no doubt. But it's a little improvement. When no one else, when you're in a category by yourself, at the moment at least, and nobody else takes great strides toward you, you're the winner. So the Warriors, in fact, are a winner. And I would also argue, by the way, and we argued about it earlier in the show, the Celtics are also a winner because they didn't push their chips to the middle of the table before it was time.
Winning is standing pat. Winning is doing nothing. No, I don't subscribe to that. No.
If you have a lead.
No. And by the way, I think the Cavaliers did make ground up on the Warriors. I think Darren Williams is an extremely underrated pickup. Darren Williams was averaging 13 and 7. He gets hurt now and then. But 13 and 7, by the way, I think he's one of the tops in the league in points created per possession. I saw Williams play this year for the Mavericks. He's not the guy that everybody thought he was with the Nets. He's not a superstar, and he's not a bust as a superstar anymore. Now he is simply a good contributor on a team that can win. Getting 13 and 7 on the Cavaliers, adding that, now will he get 13 and 7 with that team is a different question, but what it shows is he can significantly contribute to a title contending team. The Warriors lost ground yesterday. They lost ground to the Cavaliers. No way can you call that winning.
You know who believes that? Paul Pierce, by the way. Side note, please check out his Twitter. He went in. Max, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I would say that the Cavs did get better primarily because they gave nothing up for Darren Williams. And Darren Williams, it's not about 13 and 7, Will, and I'm not saying that you think it is, but it's about a backup point guard who can run your offense so LeBron and Kyrie can take a rest and who can create, as you mentioned. And so it's a nice pickup for the Cavs. But even with a backup point guard, like had they kept Dellavedova, the Cavs would be underdogs against the Warriors. It's not enough. The Warriors are very likely to win a championship this year once they added KD. So something more dramatic had to happen than just a backup point guard for the Cavs, although I know I was espousing the point of view the Cavs really need a backup point guard, and they got it, and they didn't give anything up. So I would categorize them as a winner. But ultimately, does that make up the ground between them and the Warriors this year? No. So if you have a lead and you go into prevent defense and it's working, yeah, you're winning.
I think we found our point of departure today. Okay. Max likes status quo.
Yes.
I like the fire.
Okay. On that note,
I like status quo when you're in the lead.
We'll move on.
Chasing that farewell tour, they don't love you like that. You thought you was going?
I thought we were asleep in the first half. We were still on All-Star break.
Final seconds of the third. Curry putting on moves against Crawford. 1 second left. He fires up.
We scored 50? I didn't know that.
Paul Pierce took to Twitter to clap back, bringing up that 3-1 lead. So after scoring 49 points in the first quarter, Steve Kerr asked the Warriors to have more emotion in the second half. Draymond did what he does, all fired up, spurring the Warriors' 50-point third quarter on the way to their 123-113 win over the Clippers, who they've now beaten 10 straight times. Max, is Draymond's emotion a good thing for this team?
Of course it is. And even better when he harnesses it properly. Yes, of course. But of course his emotion's good for this team. Look, KD is a silent assassin. Steph is like a baby-faced killer, right? Like the kids identify with him, everything. But he's not the loud, vocal leader in the locker room. Klay Thompson's a machine. He's a shooting machine. Where does the emotion come from? It comes from Draymond Green. And he deflects attention, or rather absorbs it, so the other guys are free to be who they want to be. And they don't have to carry that burden. That's Draymond's personality. And if you want to look for evidence, just check out last night's game. Now, the Warriors won handily. But in the third quarter, at the moment that Draymond got the tech, the Clippers were winning 66-61. It was a close game. And then Draymond gets the tech, and the Warriors score 50 points in that quarter. Is that coincidental? He's their emotional leader. Yes, he should harness it better at times, but his emotion, on balance, is excellent for the Warriors.
Molly, I know that you've offered all kinds of health remedies for us on this show. Several of them, I think, can be called homeopathic in nature, perhaps even.
Yes, I'm into wellness.
You're into wellness. Did you know that you can die by drinking too much water?
No.
Too much water. You can have water poisoning. You can have too much of anything. Of course, Draymond's emotion is good for the Warriors to a point. And too often, it goes over that point. Too often, Draymond's emotion, which is so often good for them, becomes a negative. Not once, not twice, not at regular season games when he kicks Blake Griffin in the what was it, first quarter, second quarter, kicked Blake Griffin. Not at just meaningless, harmless times, but in the NBA Finals when his emotion gets the better of him against a guy like LeBron James. We talked about this earlier, Max. Genius always exists on a line. It always exists on an edge. And sometimes it spills over. Now, here's the catch, I think. I don't think the Warriors need Draymond's emotion. I don't think a team that wins 73 games and has Steph, Clay, and Kevin Durant needs or should need to be motivated. Maybe a regular season game against the Clippers in February, perhaps. Come playoff time, do they really need a guy that has the... I'm not talking about Draymond as a player. I'm talking about Draymond as a motivator. Do they really need a guy who has the potential to bark at Steve Kerr like he did last night, to explode in the locker room like he did last year? Draymond's emotion is one of the biggest risk factors for this team. The positive side of it that you talk about, which he does offer, at this point, Max, you could almost say is almost unnecessary. This team is so good, they don't need that. And the negative...
The coach doesn't think that's true.
Who?
The coach doesn't think it's unnecessary. The coach, I mean, Steve Kerr doesn't think it's unnecessary. He implored him for more emotion.
Would he say that, really, if he needed
Draymond
meant
gave
it
it to him.
If Steve Kerr had a problem with Draymond's antics, do you think he'd really say it?
I don't think that the issue for Draymond is necessarily only, in terms of his emotion, only that he could get suspended in the middle of an important game. I mean, that's acknowledging his importance as a player, incidentally.
Yes.
You're tacitly
but
acknowledging.
No one would argue he's not important as a player.
Well, I mean, okay.
We're talking
so
about his
if he got his
emotion.
emotions in check, he'd be even better. Okay, fine, that's legitimate. But it's different than saying earlier in the show, incidentally, that that's holding them back from a championship, because that's supposing you can find a guy just like Draymond who knows how to check his emotions. I think the bigger danger for Draymond's emotional kind of intensity is that after a while, his teammates could tune him out in the locker room, roll their eyes. Oh, there goes Draymond again. If you're always at 11, you know, how do you ratchet it up even more when you really want your teammates to hear you? Well, maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe that's why he kicks or draws technicals, because if he's always amped up as high as he can kind of legally be, then he needs to cross the line to really get his point across, because otherwise it just becomes, for lack of a better word, like white noise to his teammates. There's a danger in that, sure. But all we're really arguing is that anyone, including Draymond Green, can further optimize their behavior. That there's always room for improvement. There is room for improvement in Draymond Green in terms of the way he checks his emotions. Sure, he's imperfect, but his emotion generally is not only important, I think it's necessary for this team that otherwise doesn't have it.
I think what we're arguing about, Max, is whether or not Draymond can become better, but whether or not he can control himself. Because if he cannot, we're not having a theoretical debate. If he cannot, he can cost his team a championship. If he cannot control his emotions, he can take a very, very good player, a great player in himself off the court. He did it 1 year ago. And I don't know, at this point, the evidence suggests it's not a good bet to suggest he can control it. It's not.
But when you say control, you really are talking about just self-improvement that anyone can go through. Because
not
his
getting
energy,
ejected, essentially.
Look, yes, he'd be even better if he always towed the line properly instead of sometimes walking across it, stepping across it. But the reason he's an elite defender at 5 positions is because he's always energetic.
So,
you could be energetic
what you're
without.
Saying, Max, is he's such
who else doesn't like him?
But he's such a good player that he's worth towing the line and sometimes picking up a tech and things like that. That's essentially what you're saying, right?
No, I'm saying that we're trying to divorce what makes him go from we're trying to take that and separate it out and say just control that part. Yes, it would be good if he could take that back a little, but that part that always
that's what makes him so great.
As high as he goes.
No.
That's what makes him. That's why he comes up with the loose balls. That's why he runs the floor and tires out the other side's bigs the way he does. That's why he can switch on everybody. That's why he can guard all those positions and still have the energy to be offensively have an impact. That's why.
I think, Max, that is being an apologist for his behavior. I think it's not. You can respect Draymond very, very much and suggest your energy is great, your emotion is great, and then you kick people in the.
Those are natural body movements.
And then you yell at your coach, and then you get yourself kicked out, and you can't do that. You can still be great and not do that.
Don't kick people, Draymond. It's basketball. Don't kick people. That's true.
Speaking of getting kicked out, a few years ago, Colin Kaepernick was being talked about as possibly being the next Tom Brady, but after a lot of political drama this season, some mediocre play, he's on the chopping block for the 49ers. Does he deserve another shot in San Fran with the new brass? Plus, could Adrian Peterson be moving on from the Vikings? The team and legendary running back apparently haven't had any talks yet about this upcoming season. Is he expendable for Minnesota, and where could he go? Stay tuned. Tonight on ESPN, we've got two of the top teams in the Eastern Conference battling at 8 Eastern with the Celtics and Raptors. Then at 10:30, it's the Spurs and Clippers. Our coverage tips with NBA Countdown at 7 Eastern, also streaming live on the ESPN app, and watch ESPN in Saturday night on ESPN. Got two great college hoops games for you. At 6 Eastern, third-ranked Kansas takes on Texas. Then we'll have our huge Saturday primetime game. It's number 5 UCLA and number 4 Arizona, both games also streaming live on the apps.
I would characterize it as just a really positive discussion. I think we from the start, Kyle and I have committed. I was a player once, and you just want to be honest. You want people to be honest with you, and so we committed to doing that. We also committed to, what we talked about remaining between us, and so I do think that there's some things that are sacred. We had a great discussion, and I think Colin left excited. We left excited. Very much enjoyed being around Colin, and he seems like he's in a real good place.
That voice was new 49ers GM John Lynch saying he and new head coach Kyle Shanahan had a very positive discussion with Colin, and Kaepernick left the meeting excited. Cap can void the contract 7 days before the start of the season and become a free agent. Meanwhile, the bust is in the building. The Hall of Famer Jerome Bettis. It has been too long. Good to see you.
Thanks.
I'm going to start with you here, though, Will. Should the 49ers give Colin another shot?
No. I mean, what's the point? Why would you do that? What are you hoping to? What's your upside? Like
he had a good game against the Jets.
And some people point out that his statistics were better than you might suspect when he's in the pocket. But I mean, this is a simple gambling equation. Like, you buy back in on Colin Kaepernick. What do you hope to hit, Max? I mean, what is the upside on this? This is a complete.
Can we answer that?
Well, hold on. This is a complete reboot of a franchise. You need to start over. You need to build for the future. Is there any chance that Colin Kaepernick is your future quarterback 3 years down the road? Is there any chance that this is the guy you build your franchise around for the next 5 to 10 years? The answer has got to be unequivocally no. So why go back in on him for one more year?
It's equivocally no. First of all, are the Niners ready to compete now? No. They have a ton of holes they need to fill. In fact, they should trade down in the draft to restock the roster. So right now, the quarterback in certain ways is a tackling dummy. Like when people said, where could Jay Cutler wind up? I thought, well, I don't know, maybe if you don't have to give up much for him or pay much for him, maybe the 49ers. They're not very good right now, and just get a competent quarterback. Colin Kaepernick was one Richard Sherman play away from going to back-to-back Super Bowls. Jaws, on this network, said at one point he has a chance to be the best who ever did it. So what's the upside for Colin Kaepernick? Now, look, those predictions he fell short, obviously, those predictions, and he's not an elite quarterback and all that. But at one point, he was seen as a guy who, if he wasn't already there, was on his way. And again, one Richard Sherman play away from going to back-to-back Super Bowls. What's the upside? The upside is very, very high, in fact, because we've already seen him do it. How did he play last year? Not bad. Is it a huge commitment in years or dollars or resources to him? No. Do you need to win right now? No. Does he have a familiarity with the organization and roots now in the area? Yeah. I mean, there's actually very little downside in Colin Kaepernick, but there is some upside, and even if there weren't, they are a ways away from needing to worry about getting quarterback right in San Francisco.
So, Max, it's hard for me to say this, that I agree with you, but I actually do agree with you in terms of there is tremendous upside. And you said it earlier. You said the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers is going to be a tackling dummy. So understanding that, you have to understand. Now, Kyle Shanahan is going to be the head coach. Now, he's familiar with a lot of different types of offenses, right? So now what he has to do is, one, assess his team and see that, we can't do the things that we did in Atlanta. The best chance that we have to have success now is to go more like maybe the Redskins offense when I had RG3. So you know what? Maybe Colin Kaepernick is my best offense right now until I can bring in the players that I need to now move toward more of an Atlanta Falcons style offense. You can't have that offense if you don't have the speed, you don't have the size, you don't have the players at those key positions, the multiple running backs, the multiple receivers. They don't have that in San Francisco. So now he has to understand, I can't just go out there and still try to run this system with no players. I will have zero success. So now I need to find a way to bridge that time from right now to where I want to get to. And Colin Kaepernick can be that player because he brings offense in and of himself, his ability to run and throw with the football. We've seen him do it, like Max, like you said, we've seen him do it. We know that he's capable of doing this. So now you need to put him in the best possible position to be successful. Now, can that offensive line, can everyone on that team, can they be successful in that type of offense? Well, we've seen them in that type of offense. We know that they're capable of doing it. Now, can they sustain that? And is Colin Kaepernick the player that he was, 3, 4, 5 years ago? That is the question I believe we have.
But I believe
you have to say yes. You have to.
If you look at the calendar,
you have to say he's capable of doing that.
Physical prime.
Absolutely.
And one of the problems with Kaepernick, Will, is that he was already so good and showed so much promise that there was a constant tinkering, making him even better in certain respects. And he took a step back. And, of course, Harbaugh leaving doesn't help. But I think people have come to the realization, hey, if he could just be what he was, that's plenty.
But he's not.
Even if he's not what he was, he's okay and he doesn't cost you anything right now.
Okay, so first of all, I'm listening to you guys. That's about to reveal itself in my rebuttal to you. First of all, you retained the hope that he can be something he was 3 years ago. That's your potential upside. I think that is more than rosy. I think that's more than hopeful, and I think you know it. I think that he was 29th in QBR this year, and you both characterized him as, or the quarterback for the 49ers as, a tackling dummy, something he, I guess, would fit perfectly. So let's submit that I think your potential is a little bit of a stretch. If you're going to have a tackling dummy, answer this honestly. Whether or not you side with Colin Kaepernick on his protests over the last year or you found it something unappealing, do you think the net public relations effect on the 49ers was a positive? From a public relations standpoint, do they want to do that again?
I don't believe they have to do that again.
In that neck of the woods, I don't know if it hurt them.
I don't think they have to do that again. This is past that stage. They're on the other side of this issue. It's not still on the forefront every single day in the papers.
We'll see next season.
Or is that the leading story? I don't believe
we'll see next season, but I don't think you want your tackling dummy with a tenuous upside and a potential PR downside when you have other options. There's Jay Cutler that's going to be floated out there. Hey, by the way, RG3, your RG3. He might be out there. So if Kyle Shanahan wants to run that again, he might have the exact guy.
Also debatable
if you put all these guys in there with and they're tackling dummies, none of them can stand up.
Including Kaepernick.
All right.
I think he can.
It's debatable if AD still got it, too. And we are now just 2 weeks away before the March 9th deadline for the Vikings to decide whether to pick up the $18 million option for Adrian Peterson. Vikings GM Rick Spielman says he hasn't decided what the team will do. Max, I'd be very excited if the Giants got him. I don't know about you, but that is not the question. How much does Peterson have left in the tank?
I think Adrian Peterson is gone, never to return. And Bus, you and I argued about this in the beginning of the season. And when I talk about the cliff, even for Tom Brady or any player, when they hit a certain age, and a lot of times I'll hear, oh, yeah, because had he not gotten hurt, but that's part of it. It's an extremely violent sport, and as one ages, their tendons become, more brittle and all those kind of things. And they're more injury prone. And just exposure to the NFL makes you more likely to be hurt. But the two things compound, and that's why, especially at the running back position, you see very few past the age of 30 who are really good. Adrian Peterson is such a physical freak. I mean, he's come back from injuries most other humans can't, way ahead of time. And so I think he can still be an effective NFL player. But I think the idea that we're going to see a prime Adrian Peterson, meaning one of either the best back in the league or one of the best handful of backs in the league, Those days are gone, and therefore you don't pay $20 million for that.
Jerome,
Max,
no.
Get him,
Max,
Jerome.
first of all, I've come to realize now that you are the guy that is
Hates
a
old people.
pessimist.
Hates old people.
All people, well,
Max,
not
come
old
on.
people, but you hate like anybody that. I heard you say Paul George is going to be done in a couple of years. I mean,
No, I didn't say that. Mistaken.
When the conversation
I said Paul George
got
and Magic
there,
Johnson.
You said if you give him a long contract, he's only got 2 years
right.
left or something. to
Yes,
that
you
degree.
don't give. Listen,
I mean, he's a young player. He's not even 28 years old.
Don't
He's
do Paul George. Get
26.
him on Peterson.
So anyway, with Peterson, what you have to look at when you look at Hall of Fame running backs, and I'll say this again. 3,000 carries is at the very least the number of carries that they start to really go downward. He's only at 2,400 carries, so he's got minimum of 2 really, really good years left in him as a running back. So anybody
Great
who
years,
gets
Bus?
him
Great years?
Just come to the New York Giants.
he has, I think,
Bus,
he has.
early in the season, you told me he's still elite. He's as good as anyone.
Absolutely.
Are you backing off that?
I'm not backing off
Still.
that. Not at all. I think
But
2
John,
years,
do you-
two seasons. He's got 2 big seasons still left
Do
in
you see
him.
those 2 seasons on the Vikings?
I don't see him on the Vikings because the Vikings, they don't have the offensive line that they need for him to have success. If he goes somewhere where
would
they
you
can
like
throw
to
the
see him
football,
go?
I would love to see him in Detroit. Obviously, that'd be a hard sell.
Homer.
But I'm a homer. If he got to Detroit, if he got to the Giants, I think he would have success.
Seattle.
Anywhere where they have the passing game intact and somewhat of a solid offensive line, I think he can have a tremendous season.
We'll leave it.
By the way, the physical prime of an athlete, and this goes across sports, is younger than people assume it is. So when you see a 27 or 8-year-old basketball player, you got to start looking at the clock. It's just the way it is.
Your problem is
particularly if they've
Someone's
come
going to defy odds.
straight out of high school.
The problem
and a
is, Max, you
30-year-old
speed
running
up the
back,
clock, Max.
careful.
You just got the clock on fast, man. Slow down.
Now, he turns superstars into averages. That's his
Yes,
problem. He doesn't see superstars
Well,
as anything but statistics
Because
on a
right.
spreadsheet.
Well, you can average the superstars,
The
too.
superstar, he goes above and beyond the normal player. That's what you got to
All right.
understand.
Like you, the Hall of
Yeah,
Famer,
I'm
Jerome
averaging
Bettis. Good to see you.
superstars.
We will see you and Damian Woody later on NFL Live. Looking forward to that. Tom Brady went on Instagram and posted a video of his failed ski jump where he crashes with the caption. This is pretty good. If you French fry when you're supposed to pizza, you're going to have a bad time. Trust me. Let's not forget, he also cliff dived back in the day as well. Max, should the Patriots have a problem with this? Your favorite quarterback, the best in the league.
If I was a Patriots fan, yes, it would make me nervous, of course. Look, he's almost 1 million years old already.
Oh,
His health
Max,
has been
you're
remarkable.
Such a troll.
The cliff is coming at age
Stop
41,
it.
as I told you, and the cliff could be literal. In other words, if you ski jump off
He's
a
actually
cliff,
on a cliff.
and hurt yourself, that counts as the cliff.
He
that
also
counts.
cliff jumps.
Yeah, right. And by the way, the South Park reference, excellent by Tom Brady there. But yes, of course, you get nervous when you see. Look, ask Jay Williams, our very own, right?
Yep.
Like, can you hurt yourself doing an activity outside your sport that is dangerous? And skiing is actually dangerous. Yes, you can. If I was a Patriots fan, it would make me nervous.
All right. Yeah, that's, of course, because that's kind of obvious. You fall down, but again, you don't take into account the Tom Brady factor. And that is that really basically Tom Brady can do no wrong.
You have to be you do have to be concerned, I think, definitely about his knee. I wouldn't want to see Eli skiing.
But no, on a serious note,
I don't
Max,
know if it's the same as riding a motorcycle in terms of how
Definitely
you can
not.
endanger yourself.
No,
but
the
you
laws
can
of physics
blow
don't
your
apply to Tom Brady.
knee out easily.
Getting 2 feet of air off of a ski jump is not the same thing as riding a motorcycle. Yes, that's true. I mean, yeah, if you're a Patriots fan, your entire franchise is tied to Tom Brady, so there are many things you can get nervous about. But should you have a problem with it? Here, undoubtedly, you're true, Max. What you say is true. You don't want to see your star players doing
What
things
if
off
Dak's
the
on a
field.
snowboard, Will?
Well-
Dak is on a snowboard right now trying to catch air.
No, I mean, in
How
all
do you feel about
seriousness,
it?
and so if Dak takes care of his body, the way Tom Brady is taking care of his body, you build up a certain amount of trust with
Some
fans
equity?
and your
Okay.
organization.
But
And
Will,
hold
all
on,
that is
hold
for
on.
naught. All that's down the drain if you hurt yourself in just a legitimate accident in another sport.
Yes, look, yes.
Yeah, what if you don't? What if
I'm
you
not
don't
arguing
pizza?
for the fall. I'm not arguing for Tom Brady falling on skis. I'm talking about if anybody is capable, any veteran player is capable of taking a 2-foot 2-foot drop on skis. It would be Tom Brady,
Molly,
who we've read articles about
Tom Brady
the way
pass.
he takes care of his
if
body.
This was any other quarterback, we'd be
right.
up in arms.
Anybody else?
Molly?
Yes.
I have a question. How much time do we have left here?
1 minute.
I'd like to say something, Will, from earlier in the show, if you don't mind. Everyone can see you've lost this Tom Brady debate. You asked me earlier in the show, 10 players better than Jimmy Butler. LeBron James, KD,
bring it back.
Anthony Davis, Harden, Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Steph Curry, the Greek Freak, and then pick from Kyrie, John Wall, and you will argue differently, but a strong argument can be made for Boogie or Blake. There are at least 10 guys better than Jimmy Butler in the NBA. That way I get
on that.
2
I
wins
love it.
this segment for the
Did I get in
price
your
of
head,
one.
Max? Was I in your head? Was that banging around for an hour and a half? By the way, you're wrong.
Yeah, a little bit.
By the way, you're wrong. Anthony Davis, not yet ahead of Jimmy Butler.
Not better than Jimmy Butler.
Paul George. Paul George,
come on.
not better than Jimmy Butler.
Anthony Davis.
You want Jimmy Butler to come on the show to tell you you're wrong?
If Jimmy Butler comes on and tells me I'm wrong, I'll listen to that. Jimmy, are you a top 10 player?
He was just with us out in New Orleans. We'll try. We'll get on that. We'll get Josh on that to see if that can happen. Oh, a lot of fun. I love that he was hanging on to that.
First Take is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah.
You are so disrespectful.
He is going to fall off a cliff.
Shut the hell up.
That's not even close to my best.
They're wrong. And I don't give a damn that they agree with me or not.
If you've ever been discriminated against, whether it was for your race, religion, age, orientation, or gender, you understand that being excluded because of something beyond your control can be extremely damaging, especially when you're a child, which is why what Jameis Winston said to a group of children at a Florida elementary school needs to be addressed. Please know, this is not about Jameis. I appreciate him dedicating his free time to the youth. It's not the messenger, it's the message. And here's how good intentions went wrong. He had the self-awareness to realize a few of the kids were losing interest, and he asked the boys to stand up and be strong as they flexed their arms. But he told the girls to sit down and be bystanders, engaging the boys at the expense of the girls. Why couldn't all the students stand up and be strong? Jameis might not have seen what was wrong with that message at the age of 23, but a little girl in the group who couldn't be more than 10 years old did. During Winston's speech, she looked at her teacher and said, "I'm strong too." I'm not sure why none of the adults in the room, the educator, spoke up and corrected him. That's what should have happened. Lord knows I wish I was there. But instead, he continued, telling the girls they're supposed to be silent, gentle, and polite. His naivete continued with his apology. Winston said he, quote, used a poor word choice. A poor word choice, really. Frankly, that excuse is just weak. You used poor word choices, plural. He essentially told the girl, sit down, be silent, and you're not included in the I can be anything I want to be or the I'm strong mantra. If Jameis had asked all the white kids to stand up and the black kids to sit down, or the Christians to stand up and the Muslims to sit down, would you have had an issue? Yeah, me too. This is no different. Keep in mind, not only are the little girls hearing this, but the boys are too, from someone they idolize. If his message was to perpetuate gender stereotypes from the 1940s, mission accomplished. We need to be more mindful as a society of what we're teaching our kids, girls and boys, that gender, race, and religion doesn't affect who you can or can't be or the worth of your voice. For more Final Take, make sure you check out our Facebook and Twitter pages. I went in, Max. But again, it's not about Jameis. It's just about the message that we need to stop. We're hearing it a little too much in other avenues besides
really
sports as well. Thank you guys so much. Everyone have a great weekend. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening to the pod. Catch First Take weekdays, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific on ESPN. Have a great weekend. We'll see y'all on Monday.